Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Inclusion episode 10. My name is Manobina Chakraborty, an inclusive education consultant based in India. And my guests today are Dr. Anna Kennedy OBE, a renowned autism expert and founder of the UK charity Anna Kennedy Online, and Ms. Jo Luck, a multiple world champion in kickboxing and also a patron of the Anna Kennedy Online. I'm delighted to have you on my show, Joe and Anna. Thank you very much for being my guests today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us.
Welcome. Dr. Anna Kennedy has contributed immensely to the lives of people who have autism spectrum conditions and also to their families. She is a recipient of many awards such as the Global Changemaker, Woman of the Year, to name a few. And of course, Anna was awarded an OBE, that is Order of the British Empire, by Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham Palace for her services and campaigning work for autistic children. Anna, may I request you to tell us a little more about your life and work, please?
Yes, hello everyone. I don't like to be known as an expert. I am a mum who has two sons that are on the autism spectrum, aged 31 and 28. I can't believe that they're that age now. And that's why I was introduced into the world of autism. Both my sons were diagnosed quite early on, and there was just no provision in the area where I lived. Really struggling at home. They were just providing 5 hours home tuition in a little garage that we made into a classroom at home. And then I was frustrated about reading all of the books on early intervention, and I thought, well, where is it? I can't seem to find any. So in the end, I met up with some other parents, even though I was told my sons were the only two boys in the area who had autism where we lived. And what we did was we started getting bigger and bigger and bigger as a group. And we decided that, early intervention was indeed crucial. So we decided to set up a school for children who were autistic. And now the school is 22 years old. I can't believe that. 500 children have walked through the door. And a lovely thing that happened 2 years ago when we celebrated 20 years was the very first pupil that was at the school is actually a teaching assistant at the school now. So that was just so lovely to see that whole turnaround. As my boys were growing up, we decided we needed to set up a vocational college, in particular for my youngest son Angelo, because he's quite profoundly affected by his autism. He's got a sensory processing condition and he doesn't sleep very much, hence why I'm not firing on all cylinders today, because we've been up since 3 o'clock this morning. So if you're a parent of a son or a daughter on the spectrum, you'll know what I mean. We're living day to day on minimal sleep, juggling the system, trying to get the right type of education for your son or your daughter, and then obviously transition is another key milestone, and then obviously the world of work and all those different milestones which you're supporting your child through. So you have to almost become a mini expert and try and find out lots and lots about the system. It can be quite complicated. It can be sometimes against you. But what I say to parents is put your body armor on and fight for the rights of your child, because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. And I was just speaking to a parent about that this morning. So once my boys were, in school, I can now say that Patrick, I'm proud to say, he has been in employment for 3 years. He's working at Pinewood Studios. It's a bit difficult at the moment because of COVID and everything that's going on. He's on furlough, which means he's at home because it's not safe for him to go to work. And I would say Angelo's behaviours and sleeping pattern are a little bit more erratic as well, because obviously he's feeling the tension and everything's changed. Even like going out to the park for a walk, we're not doing the same things as we normally do. The benches are all sellotaped up. We're not allowed to sit down. So we're just trying to maneuver each day and the best we possibly can as a parent. I decided I wanted to create a charity And the charity was because lots of parents were writing to me about struggling with diagnosis, trying to find the right type of school, again, transition, being bullied. That's why we have a bullying campaign called Give Us a Break. They're also, what happens when they become an adult? They don't suddenly stop having autism. They need the support ongoing because obviously it's a developmental condition. And that's why I decided I wanted to start up a charity. So the charity is made up of volunteers, and they're very, very passionate volunteers, and they're either parents, carers, autistic adults, and even grandparents. My mother-in-law, she's 89. She loves the charity. She comes to all of our events. She chats to everyone. She makes everyone a cup of tea. Our family, what we call our AKO family, is growing and growing and growing. And I'm so grateful to them and my team for volunteering their time, because I couldn't do what I do without them. So the type of things that we do, we started off with the anti-bullying campaign because children and adults were being bullied in the community, online, and it seems to be happening more and more now as well because of what's happening with COVID. More and more children and adults are going online, and they can be quite vulnerable. They can be caught in things that we call mate crime. I've been working with charities in Liverpool where they have been caught up because they want to try and make friends, and then they sort of start going down the wrong path. So I have been speaking to quite a few groups, and it is quite tough online. You need to be very, very careful because our children and adults are quite vulnerable. I was speaking to a gentleman who's head of a group who's autistic himself, who's been attacked, and he's speaking to so many others where they, it's so much so that it's affecting them that they're considering suicide, which is really, really sad. And what I say to people, please speak to someone. Don't suffer alone. There's always somebody out there that will listen to you. Go to a support group, go to a charity, speak to somebody in your family. Don't suffer alone, because it can take over your whole life, which is very, very worrying. So from the anti-bullying campaign developed something that was called Autism's Got Talent, which I'm really, really proud of. And it's lots of children and adults that have gone into the performing arts world, and they've taught themselves how to sing, how to dance, how to be a magician, how to tell jokes, how to be a poet, how to act. So it's something that we're going to hopefully celebrate, fingers crossed, at the end of this year, because it'll be our 10th year anniversary. We haven't been able to have any of our events because of COVID. We're all very, very frustrated because these are such uplifting events, and it's a springboard for many for building on their confidence or going on to other things. Like it could be they might go to make a charity single, a charity album, set up their own business. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. So keep checking the charity website, which is www.annakennedyonline.com. Lots of information on there, lots of information and resources. We've got a transition workshop coming up as well, because I just recently took part in a documentary called Harvey and Me with Katie Price and her son Harvey. Harvey's one of our anti-bullying ambassadors who's been trolled really, really badly. So Katie's pushing for Harvey's Law, and she's also coming on board to support us with Give Us a Break. So that documentary has caused so many messages coming in. Families worried about transition. How far ahead do I need to start preparing? What do I need to do? All those questions that, where you have to navigate each particular challenge that is in your son or your daughter's life. I also do radio program once a week where I invite autistic adults called All Things Autism, and it's on women's radio station. So if you're interested in listening, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 1 o'clock in the morning, and Joe's been one of my guests. So they talk about their life, they give advice, they give tips, talk about lockdown, and it's an hour for them to talk about what they want to share with the public, and it's very, very popular. And then once a month we do something called All Things Autism in Essex with one of my charity ambassadors, Aston, who's amazing at what he does. He's a radio presenter, he's got so many different hats, and together we present autism, All Things Autism in Essex. And I'm really grateful to the radio station because Essex has become really, really autism aware. Last thing we do as an event, we do lots of other things, but you can check it out on the charity website, is the Autism Hero Awards. There are so many people out there that are doing fantastic work whether it's a parent, whether it's a carer, whether it's a professional, whether it's a reporter that's writing particularly well. So if you would like to nominate somebody that you feel that goes the extra mile or they have supported you, we have the Autism Hero Awards, and it's become global now as Autism's Got Talent. Please nominate. So that again is on the charity website. The closing date is in September, and we hope to have the awards again, fingers crossed, for November. So I'm going to give the platform now over to Jo, because she is an amazing speaker, and I feel that your listeners should be listening to Jo. She's autistic, she's got autism, she's got ADHD, but she has achieved so much. Very, very proud of Jo, and over to Jo now to tell her story.
Yes, I would like to add here, Anna. First of all, thank you very much for being such a great advocate for many other parents. You are truly, truly inspirational. And Jo is one of the patrons of Anna Kennedy Online. As Anna said, she has a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome and ADHD, and she's a multiple world champion in her sport of kickboxing. Jo is a resilient and strong woman who was diagnosed as an adult and subsequently has faced many challenges. In spite of all the knockbacks, she has in fact grown stronger. Jo, we'd love to know more about your inspiring life if you could share with us.
Sure. Like, what do you want to know, really? Because there's lots of how that I could tell you about. So
you have some questions. Would you like to ask some of the questions? Is that okay?
You want me to ask some questions?
Yeah, the other questions that we agreed on, if that's okay, and then that gives some sort of structure for Jo.
Yes, of course. So, as Jo, you was diagnosed as an adult. So, how was it like going for a diagnosis as an adult? And after that, how you faced life and your life story after that?
Well, I didn't know what autism was before I was diagnosed. So I'd always kind of wondered why I struggled so much in different places. And going through the diagnosis and the diagnostic process, it gave a lot of mixed feelings. It's one of those things where at the end of it, like, some people get really pleased about the fact they've got the diagnosis. They know the answer. They've got the answer to the things that they struggled with. And some people find it hard to accept the diagnosis. They don't want to be seen as being different or as being less. And I think I wasn't one of the people that made that sort of, it made me feel like I was less or anything like that. For me, it just made me feel like I started to understand a lot of the things that I'd struggled with, and I found some of that quite a relief to know that actually there wasn't this big thing that was wrong with me. It was just that I think differently about things, and really that it also brought a lot of like hard feelings, because suddenly everything in my life had a different meaning attached to it and attributed to it. So it was like going back over the whole of my life, making sense of what happened, and sort of learning to understand myself. And that process took a long time and took a lot of stuff out of me, really, because it's just like everything that you thought your life was is suddenly different, but not different all at the same time. It's like you've just put on a different set of glasses in a way, because you've been looking at it all as if with all the expectations that people have of you, and then suddenly actually some of those expectations might have slightly been unfair. And for me, I'm quite articulate and intelligent, and like a lot of the time you won't notice that I've got anything that makes things harder for me, or there's any challenges that I have, or that I'm different in any way. I'm quite able to blend and mask and fit into things quite well. But at the same time, my presentation is just not understood by professionals or understood by other people, because it looks like all of a sudden I'm attention seeking or I'm trying to manipulate situations when I'm struggling. And one of the things that's been really difficult for me is the more that I've understood myself and the more that I've been able to explain my challenges, the more it looks like I'm doing those things, because it seems a lot more contrived. And it's just that's the thing that's made life hard, is that even though I've had that diagnosis and you'd think, oh, great, I've got the answers, I know what's going on, I know how I work, I know how I need things, I've got something I can say to people that's going to mean they understand my challenges. It hasn't been like that for me, because I have a higher level of intelligence or complexity of dual diagnosis, or like I don't know, like it's just a lack of understanding on the behalf of other people. But that has been the most difficult thing, is that I kind of expected that having that diagnosis would mean that when I said this is what I've got autism, people would know what to do, but that hasn't been the case. And that's kind of like what I want to kind of help to change, really, is because I feel that I can explain some of my challenges quite well in the way that I see things and how I am. So if I can do that, that can help to bring sort of more insights into just how it can be to live life as an autistic person with people around you that aren't quite seeing things the way that you are and understanding them. So I guess that's been the thing for me, is that my presentation can change from being like this, being quite calm and able to explain and sounding very kind of articulate and like has a good use of expressive language and everything like that, to then if I have some sensory overload or anything like that, I can completely lose the ability to even say anything. Or there's times where I've not been able to stand because of the sensory impact. Overloading my senses, it's put my balance sense out, so I can't stand or walk or control what I do. And to anybody on the outside who doesn't know me or understand that about me, it looks like I'm doing it on purpose, or I'm making a thing out of nothing for attention or to get what I want. And it's probably one of the hardest things, is that worry that that's going to happen, but then also you worry that if it does happen, that's the reaction that you're going to get.
I think that there should be more training on sensory processing conditions, don't you? Because that I think that's what impacts more on both my sons as well, especially my youngest son. So I feel that training for me is key for everybody, no matter what profession that you're in, because you're going to meet someone on the autism spectrum. So I think that it should be autism training, and then specifically sensory processing condition training, because there's a lot of people out there that just don't realize that how the sensory issues around them impacts on our children and on our adults.
And yeah, the sensory stuff is huge. I've never had any assessment of sensory issues, but I'm affected by them to quite a great extent. And getting any support for that as an adult is very, very difficult.
Could you give an example, Jo, about something that sensory, just for people that are listening in that might have a son or a daughter, they may just have been diagnosed. So talk about something that impacts you sensory wise.
Well, if I go to an appointment or something like that, obviously the fact that it's a different place, it's a stressful situation because it's that formal clinical environment. But for me, when I go into an appointment, if there's bright lights on and windows are open, I can't focus on speaking, so I won't be able to talk to the doctors. And this has gone on for so many years that I'd be in there and I'd just be like sat there not knowing what to say or how to respond, because I'm not taking in what they say. And then it's just the moment that they switch the lights off or close the blinds so the lights dimmer, I can actually talk and tell them what the problem is and engage in that appointment. Some of the more extreme examples have been times where I've been like I think I went to a kickboxing competitions. They're always really difficult for me. They're very sensory. There's lots. Everyone who goes to one comes away with a headache, basically. So it's not just that it's me, but for somebody who's got those additional sensory processing issues, it's really difficult to cope with. And I'd been away competing internationally, and I was having a lot of additional stress at the time. So I wasn't able to manage the sensory processing issues as well as I normally would. And the result of that was that later on in the evening, I was in the restaurant having a meal with my carer, and because it was sort of dimmed lighting, there was like something sizzling, there's smells over there was all this noise going on, and there were these children running around our table. There's just so much going on, and then all of a sudden one of the children one of the children touched me, and it was just from that point, every time they ran past my chair, I thought I was going to be touched, and I just couldn't cope with that. And I went from being able to eat my dinner and hold the knife and fork to not being able to use my fork properly. And so my carer tried to give me my PRN medication to help me be calm, and I couldn't pick the tablet up to put it in my mouth because I couldn't judge where it was. My proprioception goes off. So that means sometimes proprioception is being able to judge where you are in time and space. So it's knowing like what's touching you and where and that kind of thing. And so sometimes when I'm really stressed, I can't feel surfaces beneath me. So I can feel like I'm falling through air, or like I feel like I need something really heavy on me, which is why I like fighting for, because it's someone hitting me. So it makes me grounded. But I couldn't judge where that tablet was because I couldn't feel it on my fingers. So like she had to put that in my mouth so I could take it. And then one of my things is when I'm stressed and sensory, I want to get onto the floor and I want to lay down. And I want to do that because when I lay on my front on the floor, I get that deep pressure that you can get through weighted blankets and things like that through the floor. So it helps me to be calm. And it also means that I'm safe. So I'm not at risk of headbutting something. I'm not at risk of throwing things or pushing anybody. It's keeping me safe from stuff. So I automatically want to go to the floor, but I couldn't do that in the restaurant. And my carer couldn't carry me out on her own because my legs I stopped being able to feel where my legs were because of that proprioception thing. So I had to have one of my teammates and my carer kind of both carry me out of a restaurant, and I was really stressed and making noises. I won't look like at all like I am now. I look a lot lower functioning, but it's still me. It's still all part of my presentation. That's not something that's completely unusual, and it's not something that's unpredictable. It's predictable in knowing that there is a pattern to it. So to me, I just felt really kind of like it's embarrassing because you feel like you get judged on that side of you, how one minute you're fine and the next minute you're not. And I probably felt like I looked like somebody who drank too much or something, and you get like those kind of people making those kind of assumptions about you as well. So that's really hard. And then I got into the hotel room and I was literally kind of screaming and in complete meltdown for like an hour. And it was so bad that my kickboxing instructor had to come in and help me to calm down from it, because like I've known him since I was 13. So he's quite a calming presence for me. He knows kind of how to like, he knows how to get into like how to get my brain to calm. He knows things that are kind of like that what I need sort of those calm instructions. And like it was just I needed just extra reassurance from him as well as from my carer. So that's just like sort of day to day, like obviously the lights are a problem, but there are times when things get too much and it can lead to that. And that's where I feel most vulnerable, because if that can happen at any time when I'm out in public, if there's an alarm that goes off, for example, like a fire alarm, I won't leave the building. I'll just stand there because I'm like sort of can't cope with it. And that's when then people will look at you like, what are you doing, and not realize they need to help you. And then somebody might grab you, try and pull you out, which would be the worst thing to do, because that would make it worse and harder and more painful for me.
And I just wanted to know about the health services and other facilities for autistic individuals in the UK. Is the system supportive enough, Joe?
No. See, I'm now involved in working alongside the local healthcare trust where I live. We work on a collaborative basis between autistic people and professionals who champion the rights of autistic people within their services, and it's like a really good model, I think, because it enables us to give insights into the things that we're finding difficult within those services, and it also helps us to understand how they should be working. And we're trying to like fill gaps within services, but currently there are just a lot of gaps within those services. I think all over the place really, but how it is in my local area is that there are teams for learning disability and there are teams for mental health, but I don't fit into either. So they will try and like put you into one of those areas, but actually they don't know what to do with you within that. So you're kind of stuck and nobody knows how to help. So I think one of the biggest things that needs to change is professionals being willing to listen to those autistic people, and to like, I think one of the things that's been really difficult, because obviously I had to go through mental health services, is that once one professional forms an opinion about you, that can become quite toxic, and it can like filter through the rest of the service. So if one professional decides that you are trying to get more than what you actually need, or you're playing on things, or you're attention seeking, then that message gets amplified throughout the service, and then everyone will always look at you in that respect, when actually it's a really unfair judgment to make. I think that it's one of the things that needs to happen is this more awareness about the autism as an identity, and it's not to say that we're a completely different type of person. It's basically more along the lines of how my brain works is so different to how somebody who doesn't have autism's brain might work, and therefore to treat me in the same way and to think that the experiences that I have will be the same as that other person who doesn't have autism will experience them is very backward and kind of wrong. When you take into consideration something like trauma and PTSD, a lot of people don't see where somebody with autism has PTSD over something that they wouldn't expect PTSD to arise from. So you'd normally associate it with so very traumatic events like being at war or like assault and things like that. But an autistic person could get PTSD effectively from sensory experiences on a day-to-day basis, or from every time a social interaction goes wrong, or they feel ridiculed because they didn't understand something. Those traumas can actually be worse for them than if they did experience some of those more high-end like traumas that we would normally expect to cause PTSD. So in effect, it could be worse for them to deal with the lack of understanding about something socially than it could be for them to deal with something such as being in a really bad car crash, because that car crash is a bit more concrete for them. So I think that's the thing that needs to change the most, is for people to understand that we will experience things differently, we will perceive things differently, we will think about things and have different ideas about things. And it's really important for us to be heard when we're kind of explaining how we see things, how we experience them. Because I've been in appointments where I've said, you know, this is how it is for me, this is what I'm struggling with. And I've been told, no, you don't struggle with that. You understand what I'm saying because you're following my conversation. And when you're asking a professional to explain your healthcare and they refuse to because they tell you that you already understand, there's a problem there, really, because we all deserve to understand what's going to happen with our healthcare.
I think the thing is, the more articulate you are when you're on the spectrum, the less help and the less understanding that you have. And I always remember, Joe, if you don't mind me saying, that when you were going through a mental health crisis, oh, was it about 3-4 years ago, that you could hear the doctors and nurses arguing, saying that they didn't know what to do with you because you were too articulate. So that's why it's key that training is consistent and it's ongoing. It's not just like one session for an hour or a day session. It has to be ongoing. It's really, really key. So how would you like things to change, Joe? If you had a magic wand, how would you like things to change to support adults like yourself that are more articulate, that you don't have to experience what you've had experienced in the past, if you can encapsulate it?
Yeah, well, that time that I was in hospital, that was obviously very, very difficult. There was actually nowhere for me to go. So I think the first thing is to have appropriate services that are equipped to deal with the needs of autistic people, whether that be services that are specifically for autistic people, or whether they are services that already exist, that have had training and are equipped to deal with the needs of autistic people. And I think that the only way that you're going to understand what those needs of autistic people are is if you're listening to those people and to the people that care for them and support them. So it's where it's very vital that you do listen to parents and you do listen to other caregivers, because sometimes those people can give you valuable insights into how to manage that person's behavior. It's like with what happened with Oliver McGowan, obviously, like that's a huge thing that happened within healthcare, that his parents and he was not listened to about his treatment and what he chose for treatment, and his wishes were overridden by the doctors, and unfortunately he died. And that's what you're kind of looking at. It might not always be to that extreme, but we all have a right to be heard about what we want and how we want to be treated within healthcare, because sometimes we know things about what we've experienced that might not be in our records, or that might not be understood by professionals. And that's the really hard thing, is that where I've been understood most by other professionals has been where they have a similar neurology to me, and that says so much, because there's always this thing that this misconception that people with autism don't have empathy, and it's absolute rubbish. And that they look at autism as a trait of autism is not being able to relate to other people and to empathize with others. But the thing is that when you look at people who don't have autism that are in my life, I sit there and I think, well, can they relate to me? Like, and do they empathize with what I struggle with? And often that answer is no. So isn't this ability or lack of ability to relate to people that have differences to you, and to not be able to empathize with their experiences, isn't that more of a human thing than a autistic thing? Because if everybody could understand and relate to somebody who was autistic, we wouldn't be sitting here having these conversations, because they would just know. So yeah. I think that works both ways, and often that's one of the things that gets forgotten. It's forgotten that, like, as much as you don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, I don't understand what you're doing. And you have all these training courses on people like me and such, saying about how, like, we experience things, but you never have a thing like that for us as us. What actually, this is how neurotypicals think, and this is what we do, and this is how we see things, because that confuses me as much as what I see, how I see things confuses them. And it's like, obviously autism is such a big thing, and everyone is so different, but it's really about kind of trying to find that way in, because I can't speak for every autistic person. I can only share my experiences and the things that I've been involved in and seen and been around. I couldn't tell you what it feels like to be Angelo, for example, because I don't experience things the way that he does. But sometimes, even like where it comes to that, is that, like, he can have sensory issues, I have sensory issues, so there can be like little insights that might help you to work out more how his experience might be. So actually, the autistic population are fundamental to improving the way that care and education and all of those sort of support systems are provided to this sort of group of people, whether they are lower functioning or higher functioning. So I can be obviously high functioning, but I can also be very low functioning, and I know what it feels like when I can't use my voice. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to understand how Angelo might feel about not being able to use his voice.
Yeah.
But I can have an idea. So it's trying to, like, because I think there's a lot of divisions over that kind of a thing as well, like where people, like professionals, will judge you based on your ability to function, your intelligence. Well, if you're so intelligent and you are capable of all these things, how can you struggle to make your dinner? I get those kind of questions. How can you struggle to do this? If you can go and do a talk in front of all these people, why is it hard for you to come and talk to me as the doctor? And it's like, well, whenever I come to you, something's wrong. So, like, automatically I'm going to be a little bit more stressed than if I'm relaxed and plan something. So there's some of these things that are quite simple that they seem to miss, and it gets frustrating because you think, well, like, you're not seeing this because you don't ever have to worry about these things, and I do, and then you tell me that I don't, and then we have a problem, and then I can't sort of access the right thing or kind of like get the right help that I need. So I think the time that I was in hospital, I could hear the nurses saying that, like, you know, they just didn't know how to support me, and that they needed more training. And there was an occasion where I was on the floor in a sensory overload, and all I needed was some reassurance, and a nurse had sat with me and was starting to reassure me, and sort of the mental health team called her away and said that I'd chosen to be on the floor and therefore, like, to ignore the behavior. So there's this thing in mental health where if they perceive it as attention-seeking behaviours, that they will not fuel them by giving it attention. They will ignore it.
Even like something small, like when you wanted your dog to be with you because you knew that that would help you relax, they even refused you to have your dog with you. And you know, and I just couldn't get my head around that, because I thought, it's something that you're familiar with. You're in a place that you don't know, and at least you'll have, you know, Oscar with you, and you'll be able to calm down better. But they just refused that as well. They weren't flexible.
Is that thing with Oscar, like, that if he hadn't come with me at the start of going into the places that I'd been into, they'd never have got me into it. He was the transition that helped me get in, that made me feel safe. And then it was to take that away was quite distressing for me. And I didn't get sort of better and okay again until I was in a place where I could have Oscar, because there wasn't a facility. I'd been put into places just to like, as a last, like, resort. That was the only thing that was there. So the first place I was in was a crisis house, and there were no beds, so the first 2 nights I slept on chairs. Then after that I was there for 7 weeks and didn't have any health input as such. Was sent home as I was okay again, but I wasn't. And then I was in the general hospital for a week, and then because there's a protocol not to put people with autism or learning disabilities into psychiatric hospitals, but there was no other alternative for me. I was put into a care home for 7 weeks, and again, no health follow-up. So as an alternative to a hospital, I was put into a care home, but not actually monitored or given any kind of support. And the whole thing was a very distressing experience for me, because everywhere I went wasn't equipped for my needs, and they didn't understand that, or they weren't provided information about what I needed. And at that point, I couldn't explain all the things that there were. They refused.
I was just going to say, talking about information, I worked with Annie Sands, who I'm ambassador for their charity Autism Anglia, and she's autistic. She's got two, a son and a daughter on the spectrum, and she created an autism passport where they can write everything down, so you don't have to keep explaining every time you go to see a professional. And it's been very, very useful for a lot of parents and a lot of autistic adults. So if you're interested in checking it out or to create your own, it's Autism Anglia, and it's the Autism Passport. So it's very, very useful. I've got one for Angelo, so that, you know, if you're out and you're in a difficult situation, you don't have to explain everything. You've got everything written down on this passport. So that's something handy that you could carry around with you. Say, for example, like you, Joe, where you might be in a situation where you can't talk to anyone, you want to, you know, shut down. At least you have something with you where, you know, some of the information is on there. Hopefully that will help you.
Yeah, see, I've also like sort of created my own kind of passports and stuff, but there are quite a few like apps and things that you can also get for your phone. There's an app called the Ask app where you can input things about your sensory needs and stuff like that. But you can also create, if you've got an iPhone, you can create shortcuts to be able to, if you can't speak or you've got pain, you can rate that pain out of 10, and you can create things like on your phone and things like that help you to communicate what you need if you can't. But yeah, I had to make a lot of my own things and develop my own strategies. And the thing that's helped me the most has been actually learning about both of my conditions. I've had workbooks and worked through those and worked out which things I struggle with and understood those. And then I've gone about finding the solution as to how I can make that better. But it doesn't always work and it doesn't always last. So it's a constant process of trying to keep on top of everything, and that's really hard.
Yeah.
One thing, should I just say one thing as a parent, because I have to go soon because I have to pick up my son Angelo, is that obviously looking after your child who's on the spectrum or an adult, many families now are looking after adults at home, you know, in their 30s or in their 40s. It can be quite, how can I say, stressful for the parent as well. So I would say try and get some time out for yourself, because you know, you're the linchpin to the family, you and your husband or a carer, whoever it is, and if you go down, everyone goes down around you. So you must, I just stress, take time out for yourself, even if it's just to go for a walk on your own, or sit in the car and listen to some music. Well, I know it's difficult now, and I know if you're a single parent, it's even more difficult, but you need to have some time out. Because I remember for the first 10 years, because I was so focused on both my boys and I felt guilty if I was going out. Then we're setting up a school, and it just really, really takes it out of you. And, you know, you do really need, I know I'm the worst person ever, and everyone says I need to take time out. I've been on holiday for like 15 years, but you do need to take time out. It's just like really important, because you're still you. You know, I'm still Anna, even though I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a chairperson to a charity. So you need to do things that you like. So for me, it's like a bit of exercise in the morning, and when I was able, I like to dance. So that recharges my battery. So I just wanted to say, if parents are listening in, please don't feel guilty if you try to do something for yourself, because you need to. You need to like reset your mindset, if you like. I don't know how to do it. Do you know what? I'm feeling really physically tired now, so I need to take some time out. But yeah, Joe, we at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, Joe, don't we?
Yeah.
I just wanted to know one thing from both of you: your idea of inclusion. What is your idea of inclusion?
Over to you, Joe, first. What's your idea of inclusion? I don't even think you should really be thinking about it. It just should happen.
Yeah, I think
What about you, Joe?
it's one of the most important things for a human to feel part of something. Like we all want to feel part of something, like part of our family, part of our peer group, part of like the like community at work. Like it's like there's a natural longing for it. Even those that you think they don't want to be a part of something, generally, you know, like there's still a right to be a part of it. And like one of the most important things that happened for me was like boxing and being able to do that, because from the moment that like I started at kickboxing and became part of my team, I was always included as part of that team, and I was valued for my skills in kickboxing, and not as such about anything about me as a person, that like what I could or couldn't do socially. It was about the fact that I was a girl who could fight like a man and like I could beat the men up. So like being part of that and being included within that has always been that was a real big turning point for me, sort of becoming into. That's where I learned to be successful and all that kind of stuff. But I feel that sometimes, often people will make assumptions about me. They'll assume that I don't want to do something, or they'll assume that I will struggle with something, and they make that choice about whether to include me or not, and effectively take away my choice about what I would like to do, because they don't even ask me, because they already have decided that I wouldn't cope with it. And sometimes that's not the case. So I think like my message of what I want people that don't have autism to kind of know about autism is that you know, there are autistic people in the world, and we have as much right as anybody else to be able to like have our needs met and to be part of things. A lot of the things that you enjoy as a person who doesn't have autism probably came from an idea of somebody who is autistic. So we do have a really valuable role to play in society, and I don't think it's ever wrong to embrace difference, because if we never embrace difference, we wouldn't move forward as a society. We wouldn't have any innovation at all, because we wouldn't want it to be different. But I think that most people will agree that innovation is really important and key, and something that we strive for. So in that sense, we need to look at the people that are different around us as well, and value what they can bring to things. So yeah,
I was going to say, Patrick, where he works, definitely inclusion going on there. He's been there for 3 years, and obviously now he's at home because of furlough, but they have team meetings. So every Tuesday and Thursday they have a team meeting. There's 12 of them, and his passion is paleontology, and they give him 15 minutes in that team meeting to talk about paleontology. And they said they've learned so much for him that some of them now start buying books because they're interested in the topic. So even when he started a new job at the beginning of this year, he's got his own desk, and he asked if he could have some dinosaurs on his desk, and they said yes, that he can. He's got a poster on the wall, and then he's also given 20 minutes a day to have a walk around, you know, even though he has a lunchtime, because he needs to reset himself, because sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming for him to be in an office with 12 other adults. So they give him 15 to 20 minutes to walk around the site, to have a bit of a chill out, and then he can get back, sit down, and then he's in the right headspace to carry on with his job. And for me, that's inclusion, and I'm really proud that, you know, he's making his way. Now the next step for him would be to get his own place, so that's what we're working on.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Anna and Joe. I'm sure parents and, of course, professionals like me who are watching this program today are having a very enriching experience. And I know both of you are busy and you have other commitments as well, so I'll not take much of your time. But any concluding comment, Anna, any concluding advice for parents?
I'd say, as a parent, never give in. Keep going, keep pushing forward. Knowledge is power. It's just like you've got to create that space for your son or your daughter, because this is something I always say, that they're entitled to make their mark in the world just like everybody else.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And yes, of course, we would love to have more discussion in future, and would love to know your advice for us who are us as professionals who are working in India, other Asian or African countries where resources are really limited and awareness as well as acceptance is not much. And Joe, your concluding comments, please.
Well, I'd just say that inclusion is like vital for mental health and well-being, really, because being included can really kind of give somebody a lot more confidence. Like I think, like Anna will say, like with Patrick, like the confidence he has got from that inclusion in his workplace will be so valuable to then him trying new things and moving forward. And that's the thing, is that sometimes when you have a child who's autistic and you think, like, you know, you worry about what they're going to be able to achieve and what they're going to be able to do. Like, I think sometimes part of what's needed is making them feel that they can do it, and not just focusing on the things that they can't do, but trying to help them to understand who they are. I think I see, like, so often that it is really hard to explain to a child you're autistic and what it means. But sometimes if you can find people like me or other people that are autistic, there are so many people who have autism that are very good role models and have done so many amazing things. To know about these people, those children, to know about these people can really help them, like in terms of how they view themselves. And I think often some of those mental health issues that you can develop from this negative view of who you are as a person can make everything a lot more difficult for you. So if you can just take that away by showing them that actually it's okay to be you, it's okay to be who you are. You're accepted within this group, within like this class, within this family, within this like community, like on a larger scale. Like, we want you here, and we're going to embrace your differences and what you're interested in. And that's the key, is that finding that thing that you can relate to a person about and like sort of learn about from them. And you'll find there's a lot more positives that come out of it than just those negative behaviors and things that a lot of people just associate with autism. If you get that right first, that acceptance and that kind of value in who they are, you're not always going to get as much of that behavior. I'm never going to say you'd rule it out, because there's other things that cause it, but to feel like you've got somebody you can turn to, that you're not sort of the sort of like embarrassment or anything like that, you're accepted, that can go a long way.
Thank you very much, Joe. I think Anna's phone is cut off. That's what I got a message from her. And you are an amazing speaker, Joe. I must say, I wish you all the success in life. Thank you very much for coming to my show today. And Anna's phone is cut off though, but thank you very much, Anna. I really had a very enriching experience this evening. So it's time to say goodbye to our viewers too. I will come back next Friday same time with my guests from 3 different continents. We'll talk about reading and writing interventions in schools. Please keep an eye on our Facebook page, I for Inclusion's Facebook page, for further announcements in this regard. See you next week. Take care. Joe, thank you very much. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.